Actually, it wasn't my idea. It was the idea of one of the young women of Asheville, whose name is Pat Wooten, and nobody has seen or heard from or of her for years and years and years. But she called Marilyn Kaiser, who was a very prominent musician 30 years ago, 35 years ago. Marilyn was organist, choir master at All Souls. So Pat talked to Marilyn about starting a choral organization, mixed voices, adults, so on and so on. And Marilyn called me, and that's how it began.
So after a few little kind of informal get-togethers, we knew we couldn't go any further without a director. And then there were all those worrisome things like raising money and talking people into being on board. And so just gradually things grew. We picked up a few more people that Marilyn knew and invited to join us, and we just moved on from there. Asked Bob to be our director, and a wonderful person that he is, he said he'd have to think about it, but we urged him not to think about it too long because we really wanted to get started. And so he agreed, and we were off and running.
My wife Sharon and I, as well as my mother, were founding members in the fall of 1977. We came to a audition with the three of us, as well as my oldest son, who was 9 months old. And at the time he was 9 months old, Sharon was pregnant again with our youngest son. So there were actually 5 members of the Brookshire family there during that September of 1977. And Bob was so kind to listen to each one of us individually as far as our talents and our range is concerned. Me, having sung, quite a bit in college, thought that I knew everything. And Bob was very patient to listen to what I was having to say, who I had sung with, and said, okay, we still think that we can improve on what you're doing. And he improved on what Sharon and I and my mom did for the 20 years that he was, 20 years plus that he was a director here.
Well, the first rehearsals were, of course, there were not as many people, and at the first we had a lot of students from Warren Wilson because Bob was professor there. So we started out, we had students and others, and then kind of got larger and larger. We did a lot of local singing too. We sang at the Biltmore House and also at Belshare, and we did Dickens in the Village. We did the Holly Jolly Christmas at Black Mountain. We and we sang at some of the nursing homes. Brooks Howell was one we did regularly. We did 12th night concert at Warren Wilson, and we had wassail and black buns after that, and everybody in the audience was invited. So we did a little socializing there too, and. Any place anybody wanted us to sing, we were available. And we charged for a lot of those performances, so we made a little extra money for Choral Society, which was needed. We always need money. But just had a lot of fun. And we made some really good friendships that have lasted all these years, and it's been really great. I've enjoyed it.
We did not sing that fall, but just sort of developed, tried to designate the sort of organization we wanted to be. We may have put the the cart before the horse. I'm not sure. We may have better done all of this ahead of the auditions, but but we didn't. So we had the idea and the stimulus before we had the auditions. And maybe that isn't bad.
We met with Bob several times before we ever put any kind of notice out to audition choristers because he's a very thorough person and he wanted to do everything right from the very start. But we were all anxious to sing. So every time we met, which was about probably at that time then about once a month, we'd beg him to bring music and let us sight read. And at that time there were only women involved in this little group. And he would just say, no, we need to get everything organized and we need to have everything right before we start. So finally, we talked him into telling us what he would choose for the first concert. We said, well, you just got to give us some idea so we can, really get some enthusiasm going in the community. And so he did announce that it would be the Brahms Liebes Lieder waltzes.
I don't specifically remember about that concert. It was probably at Warren Wilson because that's where we did a lot of those. It was very convenient because of his association with the college people and the chapel there to be able to work with there. And it was a very good venue to work with for many years that we did that. We used to have a board that was just pretty much a volunteer thing. And it was either the second or third or fourth year that, I became the treasurer, and that filtered into my presidency. And then after that, there were more people that got involved, and what I like to say now is the fact that I pay not to have to do all the hard work that the new board members do, because it's amazing, the time and effort that you put into that, and it's a whole lot more complicated. In the early years, for the first 5-6 years, we'd just meet on a Sunday afternoon at somebody's house, whether it was my house or somebody else's house, and have refreshments and talk about a budget that was maybe $1,000 or less, and worked on that. It was a shoestring budget.
The trips were just great. We, of course, when we first started making the trips, we had some of the students with us. But then, I don't know, we kind of evolved and we didn't have the students. But we had concerts in all over Great Britain, in England and in Wales and in Scotland. And also, well, of course, we were in London several times. And we were in Italy. We sang in Rome and Venice and Florence. We sang in Scandinavia, in Sweden and Norway and Denmark. We sang in the Czech Republic. We had some marvelous times. And Venice, I think, was one of my favorite places. We did a lot of sightseeing. We saw a lot of things beside just singing. We did a lot of sightseeing. We saw some beautiful museums and beautiful churches, and we combined a lot of things, ate out and had a lot of fun being together, and just had a good time.
Well, I had no idea of, say, it's going to last for 50 years and then we don't know what will happen. But, you just assume that it's going to be there for as long as time. And as long as music exists, Bach and Brahms and other composers and good music from around the world will be there. And good music attracts good singers. And good singers respond to good music.